Welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies, and I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with PDP, Labour Party, fire federal government as cost of food items drive inflation to 26.7%. Presidency APC keep mum. NBS report on soaring food prices verdict on Tinubu's rule. That's coming from Labour Party. Nigerians now spend income on food, yet not enough. That's according to OB. Tinubu APC unprepared for governors. PDP saying that no respite for consumer prices. That's according to analysts. You can see that story on page 5. And there are two pictures here. The first is showing a pensioner who collapsed while waiting for the government audit team at the ongoing forensic audit of active and passive workers of Osun State being stretched out of the center in Oshogbo. And the other picture below is another pensioner being led away from the center yesterday. Now, moving on page 6, Adamawa North. Abo attacks Akpabio over appeal court sack. Women Affairs Minister to sue United Nations over management of donor funds. You can see that on page 7, and on sports on page 30. International friendly Super Eagles beat 10-man Mambas 3-2. Now on page 9, Israeli threat of ground invasion doesn't scare us. That's coming from HAMAS. Strike. Federal government okays implementation of 30 days MOU with Labour. You can see that on page 26 and stories above on page 19. We have Boni Light price leaps to $92.24 per barrel on positive forecast. PDP crisis. Wike queries AG BOT chairman Wabara. Sultan Kaduna, out 14 persons were killed, 31 kidnapped. That's coming from Sokapu. You can see that on page 11. And lastly, on Vanguard newspaper, federal government proposes a 26.01 trillion naira for 2024 appropriation. You can see that on page 4. Now let's move to the Punch. And Punch is leading with 2024 federal government plans 26 trillion naira budget, debt servicing to gulp 8.25 trillion naira. Personnel debt service cost to gulp 62% of 26 trillion naira. Government plans 700 naira per dollar. Federal government okays 2024 to 2026 MTEF. Tinubu to present signed budget before December 31. You can see that on page 2. And on page 2, still below, palliatives. Nigerians condemn poor ration, lambast government. Third mainland bridge now a death trap, motorists lament. Akpabio behind my removal from Senate, Abo alleges. You can see that story on pages 4, 5, and 8. Stories above on page 19, we have subsidy removal. Naira 4 push food inflation to 30.64%. And lastly, there we have federal government gets over $1.5 billion fresh World Bank AFDB loans December. That's coming from Edum. Now let's quickly take a look at the nation. And we have a federal government proposes 26 trillion naira appropriation for next year. And the writer says lawmakers to get a supplementary budget. FEC endorses a $1.5 billion World Bank loan. $80 million for Ekiti Knowledge Zone. You can see that on page 4. Empower beneficiaries to get pay backlog from next month. Stories above, 2 Osun pensioner slum during verification in Oshogbo. Earlier we saw the picture on the front page of Vanguard. And lastly, let's look at the Guardian. We have here at 1,000 naira per dollar, 30% inflation. Over 90% Nigerians denied LD diet. You can see that on page 6. Below, tension in IPOST as Odeyemi defiles a protest, resumes as PMG. You can see that on page 3. State issue 1.13 trillion naira bond in 44 years. Israeli-Hamas conflict. Sultan demands end of killings of civilians in Gaza. You can see that on page 3. And lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, motorist mob police inspector to death in Delta. You can see that on page 3 of the Kaji newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break as our guest will be analyzing the stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is today the news on Vanguard Live. My name is Damnola Okumushakin. Joining us is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of Ilukweju Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all our viewers. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies, and we're still talking in celebration of the World Food Day. Now, the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, PDP, and Labour Party yesterday rallied at federal government and the ruling APC as cost of food items others pushed inflation to an 18-year high rise of 26.72% in September. Now, over 90% Nigerians now have been denied LD diet because of this. What's your take on the inflation?
Well, yeah, yesterday being World Food Day kind of put a spotlight on this whole issue of inflation, because any average Nigerian who's been going to the market knows that everything has skyrocketed in price, from your staples like rice, beans, yam, to even more expensive things like cooking oil, cooking gas, all of that. So I don't think anybody in Nigeria is comfortably eating 3 square meals anymore. And this is not just an issue of the poor anymore. Even the middle class and even the wealthy are feeling the pinch, because the value of the naira has depleted so badly at a time when costs have risen so much that everybody's feeling the pinch. And of course, food is our staple, is our basic. It's the one thing that we can't do without. So that's the very first issue that we all focus on when prices and inflation start to skyrocket. You look at the numbers, 26% inflation, the highest in 18 years. It's not very encouraging, but at the same time, I want Nigerians to know that it's not just us. It's a global phenomenon. There's cost of living crisis everywhere across the world. Some places are just starting to feel the after effects of the COVID pandemic, believe it or not. Something that happened in 2020 is having substantive effects in 2023. Then, of course, there's the Russia-Ukraine war. Now there's Israel and Hamas in Palestine. Of course, we have issues of pipeline vandalization and oil theft in the Niger Delta that's affecting government revenues. So it's a plethora of things all coming together to conspiratorially work at cross purposes towards our well-being. But I don't think any government is sitting on his laurels and not trying to do his level best. Whether even any of the other 2 parties that ran for the presidency, if any of them had come in as opposed to the APC government, I venture to say they would still also be grappling with this problem. There's no magic one solution that you can just say abracadabra and overnight the problems will evaporate and everything will be nice and hunky-dory and a bag of rice will suddenly be 5,000 naira again. Nobody has that kind of magic one. So government just has to continue to pull the levers. I understand CBN is doing things like interest rates, adjusting the rates, monetary policy, fiscal policy. They're doing various things to try their best to kickstart the economy during trying times. These are trying times. Of course, that is of minor consolation to the average Nigerian who is feeling the pinch. As far as we are concerned, we put a government in place for the government to provide succor. And if we are not getting the succor, we are not happy. The government is not doing its best. So government should buckle up a little bit. And also, government should communicate better with the people that it feels our pain. And by communicating, I'm not talking just empty words. I mean, lead by example. Look, for example, we just saw in the papers yesterday they are going to buy jeeps for all the members of National Assembly. I think each one is 100 million naira. Each SUV, 100 million. They're going to buy for 360 House of Reps, 108 senators. How many billions is that? Part of the way government can communicate better the fact that it feels our pain and is working in our behalf to improve things is also by cutting its own costs, reducing size of government, reducing government expenditure. Government doesn't need to be lavish at this point in time. Why do our legislators need 100 million naira SUVs? Why? I don't understand it. So this is part of the thing. Government does not seem to be sincere in its effort to better our lives because it's holding itself on a different pedestal, and it's okay for government to be lavish, but all the rest of us have to tighten our belts. That's not the very best of situations.
Right now, Naira is performing very badly in the world at over 1,000 Naira to $1. And right now, you even struggle to get a bag of rice for 50,000 Naira. That's 50 kg bag. And now, our minimum wage is still 30,000 Naira. People are not, well, salary is not increasing. Things keep getting expensive, even up to oil. So, what do you think? Do you think something should be done about the minimum wage in order to help Nigerians or cushion the effect on the civil servant?
Well, most of us are living a deficit life. And by deficit life, what I mean is our expenses are more than our income. So if I'm making 30,000 naira and I have a family of three, that 30,000 naira does not feed the family of three. But yet we have to eat and we have to survive some kind of way. So, well, I believe that income should be commensurate with quality of life and cost of living. But where does government get money from? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Is that if many states still can't pay 30,000, what good will it be to increase it to 100,000 and only 2 or 3 states can pay? So this is what I'm saying, is that, look, the budget that was released yesterday, 62% of it is going towards debt service and payment of staff emoluments. 62%. So how much is left for capital expenditure for infrastructure projects and things like that? So if now we increase our wage bill, you can imagine that the percentage of the budget that will go to debt service and wages may rise up to about 80%, which will leave everything else to suffer. Education, healthcare, roads, all those things will suffer because there's not enough money. So the ultimate solution is 2 things. You either increase wages or you decrease expenses. To increase wages, we're very limited in our options. We've managed to fully and completely dependent on oil, and you can't generate more money from oil than you can bring up from the ground every day. So right now, I think we're actually doing quite well in terms of how much oil we're bringing up. I think we're doing 1.3 million barrels a day or something like that, and I think our OPEC quota is 1.6 million. But even if we're producing the maximum per day, it still doesn't meet our needs in terms of 200 million people. So, and there's nothing we can sell. We don't have anything. Well, government can sell some assets. I believe government should sell the refineries, sell places like the Secretariat in Lagos, sell things like National Stadium, sell things like TBS, sell its moribund assets that are not doing anything and use it to raise some money. But by and large, the revenue side of the equation, there's very little you can do. It's the expenditure side that we can work on. That 62% debt service, we have no choice. We borrow the money, we must pay back. But that government expenditure in terms of wages, allowances, things like that, and all of the expenses of their office, because government size is bloated, we can work on that, reduce cost of governance, and also plug loopholes, block all the areas of leakages. You'll be surprised at how much more disposable income will be in government's hands if we can cut cost of governance and block all the leakages in terms of where money is being siphoned out of government coffers. So I don't necessarily think increasing the minimum wage is the immediate solution because it's not affordable. Government cannot pay it, that's the truth. Maybe federal government can, and 2 states, maybe 2 or 3 states can afford it. But what does that leave the rest of Nigerians? That's the issue. So I'm not sure that increasing the minimum wage at this time, or perhaps as opposed to from 30,000 to 100,000, maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe 50, maybe 60, but some states still won't be able to pay it. So what's the solution? Federal government has to give bailout to those states again, and we start the ugly cycle all over again. Private industry, on the other hand, as opposed to government, nothing stops private industry. And I know some companies when the subsidy was removed, they gave extra money to their staff, saying, we know your transport fare has gone up. We know that. So private companies should be encouraged to increase their wages without a doubt. I mean, they are entrepreneurial, they are for profit, they are supposed to be making money. So if they're doing well, they should let it reflect on their staff as well.
Okay, talking about the budget, now 26.01 trillion naira was proposed yesterday. What are some of the things that you noticed in the budget?
Well, I mentioned that earlier before, that a part of major concern for me is the fact that 62%, more than half of it, is going to debt servicing and is also going to paying salary of workers. Now, I didn't look line by line to see what each sector got, but the overall picture, 26 trillion looks like a whole lot of money. That's the truth. It's about 36 billion US dollars, I think. That's a whole lot of money. The main question that comes to my mind is, where does government intend to get 26 trillion naira from? Because look at it. Here's how they came up with the budget. They said, okay, our major export, our major revenue generator is oil. So we benchmark oil for the next 2024 for $73 per barrel, which is good. It's a conservative estimate because right now oil is trading for about 90 something. So if you've benchmarked it at 70 something in your budget for next year, that means you've built in redundancy. You've been very conservative in your estimates because the oil market is volatile. So 90 something today could be 70 something tomorrow, and you don't want to estimate at 90 something and then it becomes 70 something tomorrow and you have a shortfall. So I like that part, that they were conservative in their benchmarking the price of oil at 70 something dollars per barrel, right? They've also fixed the naira to dollar exchange rate at 700, which I think shows just how dire our situation is, because if you remember that when the rates were harmonized between the parallel market and the official CBN rate when this administration came in, the expectation was that the prices would harmonize at 400 and something, the official CBN rate. So we're talking about 700 naira officially to the government. It means the naira has been devalued, which means that our money will buy much less for us coming. So yeah, okay. So I look at 1 point, they're calculating that 1 point something, 1.2 or thereabout million barrels of oil per day at $70 per barrel, 700 naira exchange rate. These are the numbers with which they used to come up with the budget. They look good. But the main million naira question is, where will you get the money? 26 trillion naira. We don't have it in the bank. We don't have it kept anywhere. That's the truth. So where will it get it? Where will they get it? Guess what? We're going out borrowing again, in spite of all the hue and cry about we owe so much, we are in debt crisis. This, for that budget to become reality, we will have to borrow. That's what struck me most yesterday when I saw it.
The personal and pension cost is over 7.78 trillion naira out of the 26.1 trillion naira, and that debt service is going to cost like 8.25 trillion naira. So that alone is like 16.3 trillion naira. But what do you have to say about the personal and the pension cost? 7.78 trillion naira.
Government is bloated. Government is too big. It is. I mean, yes, government is the largest employer of labor in the country. So a lot of people depend on government for their daily bread. But truth be told, government is bloated. The smaller government is, the better for everybody. We've always been preaching reduce government, cut fat, cut the excess, cut the bloat. Why does a minister or a senator need 21 aides? Why does a governor need 50 commissioners and 27,000 personal assistants? Why? This is wastage. So if you're having personnel costs of 7 trillion and debt, and that debt cost of 8 point something trillion is just interest payments, so it doesn't have anything to do with the principal. So by the time you look at both together, 16 trillion out of 26 is going to just those two items. There's only 10 trillion left to service the social needs of 200 million people. What would have been better were if we had out of 26 trillion, maybe 6 trillion to go for those two items, debt service and personnel costs, and then 20 trillion. If we had 20 trillion out of 26 trillion to spend on social services for all Nigerians, roads, healthcare, education, trust me, nobody in Nigeria will be complaining, because we will all feel the largesse of government. If we had that 20 trillion to spend in the economy, spend on the people, we will see the benefits rapidly. We would have good roads. I mean, just this morning, it's raining in Lagos today. Every radio station and TV station you tune to today, all they're talking about in Lagos is Third Mainland Bridge, the potholes, the traffic, the risk, the danger to people who are traveling on that bridge. So if we have 20 trillion to put in the economy for 2024, Third Mainland won't have potholes. Rail will be all over the country. Education, we won't be complaining about our kids' quality of education is poor. If we had that kind of money, which is a good almost 80% of the total amount earmarked for the budget, it's a good 80-85%. If you have that much to invest in the economy, we will see the benefits. So we need to cut. We need to first pay off the debt, pay off as much of our debt as possible, and reduce the borrowing, borrow less, so that number goes down. Then personal costs need to come down too. You can't do much about pensions. You owe the pension, you have to pay. But recurrent wage payments, you can cut size of government. But what I see happening with this administration is government is getting bigger, not smaller.
All right, Mr. Dio, what do you have to say about the pensioners themselves? Because so much has been going into pension, the budget, for a long time, and but recently a report came out that most states are owing pension. Some states are owing, as high as like 80%. They are owing them for many years. They've not paid. Yesterday, even a pensioner collapsed while waiting for government audit team after the ongoing forensic audit, collective that's in Osun State. People are lamenting seeing the state of these people.
Pension is a scam. Pension has always been a scam. Yes, that sounds horrendous, but that's the truth. Why? Because how pension works basically is during your working life, government is taking a portion of your money, saying it will match that money and it will invest it for you, so that when you retire, you have a nest egg. But what does government do? The government sees this pool of money sitting there, untouched, because you're not going to claim the pension until you retire many, many years down the road. So government will write a little paper, IOU, throw it in there and remove your money, go and spend. Right? So government just sees pension funds as available money that we can use now, not worrying about the fact that 20, 30 years from now, that is somebody's money that he's going to need. So I've never believed in pensions. Rather than trusting government with my money, I will save my own money myself. I will take out a certain amount of my salary every month and put it away in a savings account, in an IRA, in a fixed deposit, whatever the case may be. I'll do it every month. I won't trust government that if I give them my money today, 40 years from now, when I need it, they will give it to me. No government in the world will see money sitting down in a pool somewhere and won't dip their fingers in the till. So it's sad to see elderly people going through this hardship at this time over their sweat, because they worked. This money was taken from their earnings by government during their working years. Government was supposed to match it and invest it somewhere. There are pension rules that talk about the kind of things that pension money can be invested in so that it's not lost. So you can't put it in risky stocks, risky shares. You can't put it in startup businesses, things like that. The pension funds can invest it in things like government bonds that are secure. But my point is that anytime that money is sitting down idle, there's always the temptation to go and borrow from it in terms of government, because they believe the payback time is down the road. But when you see pictures of elderly people collapsing in the queue, and that's why I believe they put them through this I am alive nonsense every year. Come and queue in the hot sun for hours to do verification, to prove you are who you say you are, so you can get 8,000 naira monthly payment. I think they intentionally make it difficult because they don't want to pay, because they spent the money. That's the truth. So there should be a law against pension money. I'm sure there is a law, but is it followed? Is it enforced? That says pension money cannot be touched. If your pension money is invested for you, as soon as you retire, you should be able to get it immediately. Many state governments, after you retire, 2 years, you've not got your payoff, because you collect a lump sum and then an annuity that pays you so much every month for the rest of your life. 2-3 years after they retire, in state governments, they've not gotten their benefits. They've not. So you see this kind of thing happening, and it's really unconscionable, because they're elderly people. They are people who finish their work life. The time they should relax, be reading the newspaper under an apple tree somewhere, enjoying the breeze and the sun and smelling the roses and having a small sip of palm wine in the evening with goat meat. And then all of a sudden, now they can't afford to feed because somebody has squandered or quote unquote borrowed their sweat. So it's sad to see, but left to me, I won't give government my money to keep for me. I don't trust government. I'm sorry. I don't trust government to be fiscally responsible with money.
Let's look at this one. The Minister of Women Affairs, while addressing a press conference in Abuja, accused the United Nations of obtaining funds on behalf of the country without remitting them. And she says she will sue the body if they don't provide her the record on or before November 15.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. When I saw it yesterday, I was taken aback a bit, because this is the first time anybody will have the courage or the brashness to say, I'm going to take on the United Nations. Masters, we treat them with deference and reverence. So to now say we're going to stand up and ask for accountability over money that was supposed to be disbursed to us that we may not have gotten, I think it's courageous, I think. And I give kudos to the Minister of Women Affairs. The question is, how much clout does she have to follow up what she says she will do? If she's going to sue the United Nations, in what court? Is it in a Nigerian court? Is it in a world court? Where can she hold them to account? Where? And how do you prove your case against them? I think it's a good thing that she has issued the threat, but I'm not sure how practicable it is. I don't know if UN has immunity of some sort. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody suing the United Nations. I've never heard of it. But I think it's a good step, because at the end of the day, whatever is ours should come to us. And if it's not transparent and clear what happened to it, we should demand accountability. And that's essentially what she's doing. So let's keep our eyes on that story. I think it's a developing story. If it brings United Nations to the table to come and explain themselves, then mission accomplished.
Yes. Okay, let's end this on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. And the first person speaking today is Mrs. Mrs. says, come on, Oni, is just someone I met during my National Youth Service year. And Mr. replied, well, you're now in your permanent adult service years. Tell him your camp commandant is jealous.
Yeah, so Mr. is the camp commandant. So Mrs. should toe the line. We don't want any usurpers, interlopers, or outsiders in this marriage. So camp commandant has issued his diktat. Mrs. should be warned.
Thank you, Mr. Dayo Akitobi, for joining us this morning.
Pleasure is all mine, always. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yes. Do want to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Have a lovely day.